Welcome to Mastering Machines, where we discover tomorrow's reality.
Welcome to Mastering Machines, where we discover tomorrow's reality. Imagine landing in Tokyo, asking a stranger for directions in English, and hearing a natural sounding Japanese reply in your own voice seconds later. That's a magical moment of real-time translation. And at scale, it happened on Google's platforms long before Apple even showed anything similar. Today I'm going to talk about how Google quietly spent over a decade building the AI data infrastructure that made real-time translation possible, and why Apple, even though being the legendary hardware behemoth that it is, arrived later to this particular party. For most of the internet era, translation was clunky, copy text, pasted it into a website, and then you hope the result was readable. That workflow completely broke down in real-world conversations, when people speak fast, interrupt, and talk over background noise. To make conversations work across all different languages, a company would need three things at once: world-class speech recognition, world-class text translation, and world-class speech synthesis, all running in low latency on billions of devices. Google decided to attack all three of these pillars very early on and at scale on the web. Google Translate launched in 2006 and quickly evolved through multiple generations of AI. It moved from the rule-based and licensed tech to Google's own statistical machine translation in 2007. And then it became a neural machine translation a few years later. Each shift made translations more fluent, and it was really emphasizing for longer sentences. Crucially, Translate grew into a planetary scale product. Literally, people now translate around 1 trillion words every month across Google products. That ocean of usage gave Google massive training data and real-world feedback, which is exactly what modern AI systems need to get good at: nuance, idioms, and context. Once text translation and speech recognition were strong, Google started stitching them together into live conversation modes on mobile devices. Early conversation features in the Translate app worked by chaining 3 steps together: speech to text to text translation, and then text to speech in the target language. It was magical at the time, but still a bit slow and robotic. Over time, those pipelines got faster and faster, and today Google Translate and related tools support live back and forth conversations with audio and on-screen text translations in more than 70 languages. Even in noisy environments like airports and cafes, you're still able to hear that real-time translation. This real-time translation is brought from a demo into something people could actually use while traveling or working or at the nail salon. The real leap came when Google's speech translation research moved beyond the 3-step chain. Instead of listen to transcribe, it went to translate to speak. New large audio models could go almost directly from incoming speech to translated speech, dramatically cutting latency. Google Meet's real-time speech translation, powered with Google DeepMind audio models, can now preserve the speaker's tone, rhythm, and expression while translating with only a 2 to 3 second delay, good enough for natural conversation between people who don't share a language. This turned Meet into something like a built-in simultaneous interpreter for families and global teams. On top of that, Google layered its new Gemini models onto translation. These models handle text, audio, and even visuals together, which is called being multimodal. And they can better understand ambiguous phrases, even idioms and slang. before actually choosing the right translation. This reduces those awkward literal translations that sound wrong to native speakers of whatever language is being spoken. Gemini also powers live speech-to-speech translation experiences in Translate. So it allows people to listen to talks or shows in real time through headphones while preserving each speaker's vocal character. Under the hood, the same AI muscles that power chatbots and code assistants are now being used to listen, understand, and respond in another language almost instantly. So why did Google reach mature real-time translation before the big behemoth that is Apple? A big reason is because it had product focus and data. Google has run a translation service at massive global scale for nearly 2 decades, collecting multilingual text, speech, and user corrections across hundreds of languages and platforms. That gave it a huge training and testing advantage. Another reason is architecture. Google's business leans heavily on cloud AI and services like Search, Translate, and Meet. So it invested early in giant data centers and one of the more important products for the future, TPUs, tensor processing units, and specialized AI teams like Google Research and DeepMind. DeepMind is where Demis Hassabis is the CEO. Those resources are perfect for training the hefty models needed for low latency speech translation and then streaming them into everyday apps. Another reason for Google's lead on real-time translation is because Apple had different priorities. By contrast, historically, Apple has centered around privacy, on-device intelligence, and premium hardware experiences. That meant focusing first on features like on-device dictation, Siri, and private machine learning for things like photos, notifications, and battery optimization. Apple's translation efforts started later, and its early translation app mainly targeted text and basic phrases. While Apple's newer AI announcements emphasized on-device models and tight integration with the Apple ecosystem and how AI was implemented with it, its real-time translation tooling is still catching up, and it's not nearly as good as Google's. Google's earlier bet on cloud-scale AI and translation as a core service let it ship out robust real-time features across everywhere: web, Android, iOS, and workspace. The story of Google getting to real-time translation before Apple is really the story of just compounding AI investments made over years. Years of this infrastructure being built out. I mean, translation, speech, quietly stacking up until they actually had a useful product that was the future. As these models keep improving, expect translation to move even further into the background, built into calls, AR glasses, headphones, and cars, so that language becomes less of a wall and more of a filter you can switch off whenever you want. And the companies that started the earliest at the largest scale will keep a serious head start in making the futures real. This has been Mastering Machines, where we discover tomorrow's reality.